With Bitcoin having its most recent moment of volatility crashing down to just above $40,000, we have seen a bit of a rebound. And we have also seen the news articles starting to pop up, once again trying to rally up Bitcoin, get those bulls fired up for some FOMO and to buy the dip. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions on what I think is next for Bitcoin. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Okay guys, so yesterday we saw quite a bit of volatility when it came to Bitcoin, right? A lot of it was fueled from a rumor around how Bitcoin spot ETFs are not going to be approved. Now, rejected, delayed, and all these kind of really negative things. Now, these were just rumors, but we saw what happened with the price action just on some of these articles being circulated, and we saw a pretty significant drop for Bitcoin in a very short period of time. Now, imagine what will actually happen to Bitcoin's price should we actually see the Bitcoin spot ETFs being rejected or delayed. I think we're going to see a very significant and sharp decline in Bitcoin's price. Quarter one of this year is going to be a very tough time for many retail investors, in my opinion. This is something that I kind of was talking about late part of December, just around Christmas time, where we were expecting to kind of see, Bitcoin spot ETFs either approved, rejected, or delayed in January this year, right? So quarter one, we're going to see a lot of volatility. That volatility could see spikes to the upside, spikes to the downside, right? For the most part, I speculate that actually we're going to see more moves to the downside than to the upside. This is going to be based on the idea that actually we've seen a lot of people buying into the idea of Bitcoin spot ETF, and they have been buying in anticipation of approvals, ultimately leading us into a world where we're likely to see a mass sell-off event for Bitcoin. I spoke about this in a reasonable amount of detail over the last month or so, maybe even a bit more. So with what we saw yesterday happening, just on a rumor that the SEC might delay or reject all Bitcoin spot ETFs, leads us into a position where we have to think about what will actually happen should that come to fruition. Now, we obviously have some more bullish articles today, kind of talking about how Bitcoin is likely to see approvals from the SEC, and a lot more hope is kind of coming back into the price chart. We bounced really strongly from $40,000, or just that area about 40,000, I think it's 40,750, something to that effect, which happens to be the 50 daily EMA. Now, if we take a look at the hourly chart, we can see that we're finding resistance at the moment on the hourly 200 EMA, and we're overbought on the stochastic RSI. So there's no divergences there that are giving us confidence to think that Bitcoin's price is going to just rally on up, and we're going to, regain what we've lost. A lot of people out on Twitter and so forth are calling everything that they've seen manipulation, but it isn't price manipulation necessarily, but it's just news articles that are creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt for Bitcoin. Happens every single time. My thoughts and opinions, I think they're pretty clear at this point. I'm expecting Bitcoin to move down towards $30,000 during quarter one. Now, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin is going to move straight down there and it's going to be straight away, $30,000, and then we're just going to go sideways for a month or two. I think we're going to bounce around a little bit. We found reasonable support at the moment on that 50 EMA on the daily time frame, right? I reckon we bounce up a little bit. We maybe try to push back and regain some of these higher ranges before we fall back down and we go down and we lose the 50 EMA, the 50 SMA, and we head more towards that 200 EMA. Okay, I don't imagine that it's going to be a straight drop to the downside. Now, there's lots of real things that are happening that we need to kind of consider when it comes to the price action of Bitcoin, specifically in this year, right? And historically speaking, we usually do see a bit of a dip in quarter one on the lead up to the Bitcoin halving event, right? This is something that we see quite a bit, and so we should be aware that that has to be a consideration. If Bitcoin history is to repeat itself, then ultimately we should be expecting quarter one to be a bit of a sell-off, right? And so with the Fed and their monetary policies, whether they're going to continue to increase interest rates, is also a real key point where we have to kind of keep real focus on, so that we can make sure that we're not we're not going to lose or keep our eye off the ball or lose track of the ball when the Bitcoin spot ETF news breaks, we are going to see, in my opinion, a bit of a sell the news event. This will then be compounded potentially with the Fed actually reducing their interest rates, which will be positive news, but ultimately will happen at the worst possible time. We'll still see sell-off pressure. Now, historically speaking, the stock market has corrected about 50% when the Fed actually do pivot and when the Fed reduce their interest rates. They only do this when the economy is at its worst, as in everyone is feeling a real pinch when it comes to their expenses, the cost of living and so forth, and a lot of people are trying to live up to a certain lifestyle. So what you tend to find is that when the Fed pivot, it's when the people, the masses, generally retail investors, need to liquidate assets to sustain their lifestyles. So the Fed pivot will happen at some point in quarter 1, in my opinion. It might be quarter 2, but I reckon it'll be quarter 1. And as such, I think what we'll find is we'll have the the Bitcoin spot ETF news, approval, rejection, doesn't really matter. I think we'll see a sell-off event regardless, happening quarter 1. We'll then have a Fed pivot also compounding the price action to the downside in quarter 1. And then of course we'll have the Bitcoin halving in quarter 2. We'll see, basically a massive recovery in a big bullish market. That's kind of where I think. And I think, we don't know necessarily how low Bitcoin's price is going to go. I speculate that 30K is a really good, strong support area for Bitcoin. So I think that's going to be a nice key area to keep an eye on. But if we can't hold that area, 24, 26K is the next one after that. So we have to be quite mindful that although we don't want to necessarily see Bitcoin kind of collapse down all the way towards, $26,000, $24,000 or $30,000, it is a real possibility. And I do think that is actually a huge opportunity if you choose to see it that way. Because when you see massive volatility like this, massive amounts of fear, doubt and uncertainty coming into the market, that is the opportunity to be dollar cost averaging and to be buying up as much as possible. Chris and myself were in the market yesterday, dollar cost averaging into a few projects, and finally got a little bit of World Mobile, just a little bit, and we'll be accumulating more because I think price action is likely to go down a little bit deeper. Added Bone to my portfolio at last as well. And I've also added things like Sandbox and I think there was something else, I can't remember what it was. But I've added a few different things to the portfolio during the volatility that we saw yesterday as well. So it's a great opportunity to, not just to have fear in the market and kind of sell your assets at losses or trying to lock in whatever profit you can, but to basically add to your positions, build that portfolio bigger and better over time. So why not check out the video that I put together this morning where I actually talk about Bitcoin and how it could be heading up to $700,000. I'll put the video right here.